be there to enjoy them, yeah. Probably, yeah. No, she just saw the announcement. She did a short stick. Maybe sit in the corner. I know, move back, we're good. I would not be here. What? Yeah, no, yeah, older kids. That's right. Yeah. It is, it really is. No, I wouldn't be here if both of us were not. Yes, go ahead. Even though I don't like it. Is COVID count for that, even if it's not me? Okay. But I think we have to vote on. Well, you know, feel free to vote on. No, 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 I think I was following my son around the place all. Sorry. I let you. I did, I totally followed him around the place. I think that's why we didn't get it.
Checking microphones. Yes, we're ready.
All right, good evening, everyone. All right, hang on one second. Oh, thanks, perfect. Okay, thank you. Sorry, minor technical difficulty here. I'd like to call to order the joint meeting of the Cotati City Council and the successor agency to the former Cotati Community Redevelopment Agency for this Tuesday, February 14th, 2023. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone, and thanks for all of you joining us, keeping you away from your family. So we appreciate that you're here with us. With that, could we have a roll call?
Councilmember Rivers.
Here.
Councilmember Lemus.
Here.
Councilmember Ford.
Here.
Vice Mayor Sparks.
Here.
Mayor Harvey.
Here. Thank you. So if you wouldn't mind, please joining me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you for that. So we will move on to the next item, which is approval of the minutes and notice of waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and or adopted under this agenda item. So any questions on the minutes? Anyone have any questions? Okay, then I will open this up for public comment. Anyone in the audience wish to speak on the minutes of January 24th? I am seeing none. Kevin, do we have anyone on Zoom?
Thank you, Mayor Harvey. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you would like to make a public comment on approval of the minutes, please use the raise hand icon. Mayor Harvey, that'll end public comment.
Then I will bring that back, and I would be looking for a motion.
Move to approve the minutes?
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second, all in order, or in agreement, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Not seeing any, then that passes unanimously. Then we will move on to announcements. So meeting orientation for new attendees and viewers. In conformance with the Brown Act and the adopted City Council rules, the meeting agenda includes items labeled as action items, where the City Council will consider the item, and citizens are afforded the opportunity to provide comments relevant to the item being discussed. The meeting agenda also includes a citizen's business item, which is the designated place on the agenda where citizens have the right to say whatever they wish. The City Council may or may not choose to respond to comments as the government code allows. However, if the City Council declines to respond, it should not be perceived as giving credence to or agreeing with any statements that the City Council or its members believe are incorrect, misinformed, or purposely biased. Next, Measure S supports police services, a variety of recreation programs for all ages, and the maintenance of our streets, parks, and public buildings. See details on the web at cotadicity.org. Next, citizens interested in receiving City of Cotati community alerts via text or email are encouraged to sign up with Nixle by downloading the Everbridge app from the iOS or Android App Store, or by texting your zip code 94931 to 888-777. Next, like always, we love to hear from you, so please feel free to contact the city at 707-792-4600 or info@cotadicity.org. If you have a non-emergency issue after normal business hours, you can contact us at 707-792-4611. And of course, if you have an emergency, please contact 911. Continue to look for updates on the city's website and social media channels available on Facebook, Instagram, and Nixle. So with that, we will move to the next item, which is approval of the final agenda. Are there any changes?
Thank you, Mayor. No proposed changes tonight.
No proposed changes. Okay. So since this is an action item, I will open it up for public comment. Anyone on Zoom wishing to make a public comment? Please raise your hand.
We do have a public comment on approval of the final agenda.
Okay.
Marone Mraz, Generation Housing. Please go ahead.
My mistake. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to speak on item number 7. My bad.
Okay, that's right. We'll give you another chance later. Thank you so much for that. Any other hands?
Seeing no further hands raised, so
Okay.
Mayor Harvey, that'll end Zoom public comment.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on approval of the final agenda? Seeing no hands or no one running up to the podium, I will close public comment on that item, and we will move on with the agenda. So the next item is citizens' business and public comment for the consent calendar items. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on any items listed on the consent calendar or any matters not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda during this period. Pursuant to City Council Policy 2021-01, comments of any member of the public are normally restricted to a total of 3 minutes in length per person for matters not on the agenda, and a total of 3 minutes per person in length for any and all items on the consent calendar. The mayor may extend the time for a reasonable time where there is a disability accommodation that has been requested. So with that, I will open up citizens' business, and we'll start this time here. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on either citizens' business or items on the consent calendar? Seeing none, Kevin, could we see
Yes,
our
thank you,
Zoom
Mayor
audience?
Harvey. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you would like to make a public comment for citizens' business or consent calendar items, please use the raise hand icon at this time. Ramon Meraz, Generation Housing, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and sorry about that. I jumped the gun earlier. Good evening, Mayor Harvey, Vice Mayor Sparks, council member and staff. My name is Ramon Meraz, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement at Generation Housing. We wanted to take a minute to strongly support Cotati seeking designation as a pro-housing jurisdiction. This status will open Cotati to new funding opportunities for housing, transit, and infrastructure from the state. And there is a lot the city should take credit for. While the city's housing element process is still open, the city can still add policies that meet the pro-housing criteria before final approval. So we believe this is the time to get those policies incorporated. We have studied winning proposals from all over the state and are monitoring the increasing number of designations being awarded. And we urge you to consider 2 lessons from that research. First, the designation is awarded based on a point scale. And the higher the points, the more competitive your grant applications are. And in other cases, the more funding you are entitled to. As the total number of awarded cities goes up, 9 cities jurisdictions as of February, there's 15 more in the pipeline. The more of a liability, a lower score can be. In order to maximize the impact of a designation, we recommend taking the full time to develop a strong application to help win Cotati more funding from the state. And second, because the designation is about more than hitting a certain number of housing units, but also about changing policies that make it easier to complete developments, we encourage the planning staff and the city council to coordinate closely. The planning department will rely on the council to pass legislation that meets the designation criteria. So we ask council to support the planning department staff as much as possible by committing to specificity and timelines on each policy, because maintaining the designation over the course of 2 years depends on enacting them. In addition to seeking us out for questions, we encourage you to reach out to the Department of Housing and Community Development to get the early input on policies that they are awarding. They are very welcoming in that dialogue. Thank you for your guidance, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
There are no further hands, so Mayor Harvey, that'll end public comment.
Okay, thank you for that. So we will then move on to the consent calendar. Are there any questions or items that the council would like to pull? No? Okay, then I will be, since we've already had public input on that, then I would be looking for a motion on the consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second?
Motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Not seeing any. That passes unanimously. You guys are doing great today. So we'll move on to item number 9, which is direction on future agenda items. Do we have, yes?
Thank you. I spoke with City Manager Obed as per our process for this, and we agreed that it would not take very much staff time, so it was okay to bring forward. I'd like us to consider issuing a declaration of racism as a public health emergency and to draft a letter to the Board of Supervisors urging the County of Sonoma to declare racism as a public health emergency. This is coming from, I attended a core meeting, Cotati Organized Against Racism, and we had the chair of our local NAACP chapter in attendance, and this was a request that came from them. And I looked into it and did some research and it seemed like a good idea, so I'd like to put it on a future agenda.
Okay, I would like to understand more about that since that's not really our jurisdictional. Health is usually a county thing, so I would like to understand a little bit more. I don't want to overstep boundaries since health emergencies are typically done at the county level.
This is something that several dozens of cities have done, so it's not unheard of. The city of Napa has done a declaration like this.
And do they do their own health?
I think that it's more of a symbolic gesture that we're making a commitment to explore health discrepancies in our community and that we see it as a major problem.
Okay. All right. And any objections to that?
No, I'd support that being an agenda item.
Okay. All right. Any other items?
No, I support it as well.
Okay. Then we will move on to the next item, which is public hearings, and we have one tonight. Consideration of resolution granting approval of design review and a cottage housing development plan to allow the construction of 4 primary residential units and 2 accessory dwelling units at 902 East Cotati Avenue. And do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Mayor Harvey, members of the council. My name is J.P. Harries. I'm a senior planner with the city of Cotati, and I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation that I'd like to provide. Tonight you're considering a resolution to approve design review and a cottage housing development plan for a proposed project at 902 East Cotati Avenue. This begins on package page 57. And I guess I'll just start out by saying this is the first cottage housing development plan that the City Council is going to consider. We adopted the cottage housing ordinance in July of 2021. And at that time, we looked at quite a few different scenarios. One that we didn't look at was a small lot development like what's being presented here. So for staff, this was exciting because it was interesting to see how a project proponent would actually apply this to a small lot. I think this is probably the smallest lot that we could do this because of the site design requirements that are part of the cottage housing ordinance. But that's what we're talking about tonight, which is proposal for a cottage housing project on 902 East Cotati Avenue. And what you see in this image here is actually just it's 2 buildings and they face each other. This is the facade of one of the buildings, and then a rendering that doesn't include any of the landscaping and other interesting features that are actually part of the proposal. But it does give you an idea of what the structures would look like. Oops, I have the control. Give me 1 second. Okay, there it is. Oops. So this is located along East Cotati Avenue, kind of near the train station. That's the train station that you see in the right hand, that parking lot image. That's where the train station is. Directly across the street is the new development at Ryan Lane, and you can see it's pretty much in generally a higher density residential area. There's a few commercial businesses. There's a car wash a little bit to the east. There's all the way down on the left side of that image, there's the Chevron gas station. And there's an office building which is being converted into a preschool across the street also. And then this is just another aerial image, kind of looking at how the site sits within this higher density residential area. Whoa. So, like I was saying, this is a cottage housing project, and the proposal is to demolish an existing, there's a single-family home on that property now. It's in very, very, very poor condition. It's not habitable. And tear that down and construct 4 residential units and 2 ADUs. The parcel itself is 10,000 square feet in size. The units, the primary units are 2-bedroom and fairly small. They are 1,034 square feet to 1,291 square feet in size, and the ADUs are each 500 square feet. As you saw with that first image, it's basically two-story duplexes facing each other with the smaller 1-story ADU at the base. There are some advantages to why the ADU is placed the way that it is, and I will discuss that a little bit later. Those 2 duplexes face a central common open space, and that open space has shared amenities. This is consistent with the cottage housing ordinance. As far as parking, there are 2 garage parking spaces for each primary unit and 1 covered guest space, so that provides 9 parking spaces. Yeah, and and here I mentioned again the ADUs at the rear. By placing the ADUs at the rear, they can take advantage of reduced setbacks that are provided for ADUs, which they have done, and also we liked how it allowed the development to transition to the development behind it, which is 1 to 1.5 story high. So rather than 2-story coming right up to the 1-story, it provides a nice transition. And you'll maybe be able to see how that works here. And so this is, as you were, the top image is as if you were on East Cotati Avenue, kind of looking between the buildings. That's kind of what you would get. That's porched, and that porch is kind of married down to the sidewalk. On either side, on either side of those, on the left side, the east side, that fronts a parking lot that serves a development off of Breen Lane. And then on the right side, that fronts the driveway. So there are no structures on the east or the west or the left or the right as you look at that image. And then you can see how it would look as you face the building on that lower image there. So the zoning for this area is medium density, or NM, neighborhood medium density. It allows for 8 to 10 units an acre. On this particular project, that would allow for 1.8 to 2.3 units under normal conditions, possibly 3 if you did some work with the state density bonus program, and you could do 2 ADUs. So this project, by taking advantage of the cottage housing provision, gains an extra unit or 2 that they can add to the property. The height in this district is 28 feet. They're proposing 26.4 at the highest points. And with the setbacks, they basically have complied with the setbacks. The front would be 20, the rear with the ADUs 4, the sides are 5. The coverage in this area is 55% max. This was recently increased, and some of you may recall, I think in November, December. Actually, it might have been a little bit sooner than that. But we recently increased that from 50%. However, they're proposing 45% A big part of why they can get away with that much development and that little coverage is the whole drive area is going to be a permeable surface. This is encouraged in the cottage housing, so we're able to get a lot less coverage than you might normally get if you use like asphalt or concrete. And I mentioned the parking. There is something to say that under state law, especially in this particular area, we cannot require parking for ADUs. There is a way that they could still park ADUs or park for the ADUs there. And one could be taking advantage of the guest spot. Other is tandem arrangement and kind of front of the garages. And then the other would be parking on area streets in the vicinity that are public streets. And I can talk about it would be like Beverly Drive, across the street, Runner Park, Centera Way, not ideal, and then maybe the Lancaster. However, we feel like the project provides basically 1.5 parking spaces per unit, which, given the size of the unit, it's not unreasonable. And then, so just how it meets some of the cottage housing features, the highlights. The units are less than 1,500 square feet. As I mentioned, they range from 1,034 to 1,291. They do provide the 2,000, because there's 4 units, they have to provide 500 square feet of open space each. That's 2,000. They've met that by providing 2,004. They are providing just a little over 400 square feet of private space, the central pervious driveway. The entry porches, it will include solar and EV charging, and they're taking advantage of the density increase. Whoops. This is a little hard to see, but this is kind of the site layout. The real community area is off to the right. That hatch mark area is the driveway, and you can start to get some of the landscaping visible there. And then these renderings help to provide a little more imagery on that. And this will just be a few slides to just walk you through the development. So this is starting at East Cotati Avenue, crossing the sidewalk, and moving down the development into the common area. And that's it. And I will say that the project proponent, Noel Kirby, is here tonight. And I believe online we also have the architectural team. And so they're available to answer any questions that you might have. And staff is recommending that the City Council complete this public hearing and adopt a resolution approving design review and a cottage housing development plan to allow the construction of 4 residential units and 2 ADUs at 902 East Cotati Avenue. And with that, I'm available for any questions or comments. Thank you.
One of the questions I had, and something had come up, is garbage cans. And is that something that Recology would work on, or the developer would work on with the residents there?
Yes, and actually, they've had some conversations with Recology, and Recology is pretty much just, Noel can get into more detail with that, but Recology has just said, yeah, we can serve the project. It's not a problem for them to serve the project. I should say the bins, there's two kind of, they're kind of hidden underneath those staircases, but there's bin storage areas. The bins are going to be shared amongst the units, so it's not going to be, 24 bins. It's going to be, they don't need that many bins, but they'll have to figure out what it is going to be over time. But the conversations have been had with Recology, and they don't see any problem with serving the project.
And one other question I had is, are these market rate apartments, or will there be any affordable housing included in these units?
These are proposed to be market rate, so nothing deed restricted at this point. They will have to participate by paying our in lieu fee, because if you are building less than 10 units, you can pay into the in lieu fee. I will say the units are small enough that we view that they're probably going to be, there's an affordability by design component that goes into this, 500 square foot. These are going to be rental units, I should also say. Like 500 square foot ADU is going to have a built-in limit on what you can ask for it.
So thanks, you answered several of my questions in response to Councilmember Lemus's question. I'm wondering if the new VUNERF, however you say that, ordinance applies to this project. It feels like this is exactly what it was designed for, but you didn't mention it meeting any of those criteria.
It does not, because it doesn't have the lengths that we require for the VUNERF, but we talked about it actually and wanting them to include what they could do with that ordinance. Also, this came in before that ordinance was passed, so they are kind of exempt from it. However, we did talk about it, and we felt like they did try to do that by, let me go back a few slides. And, well, by bringing I guess I can't go backwards. Yeah, we'll stop right there. So, go one more. So it's not just a straight-in drive. It tries to break it up a little bit. It does use an alternative surface than the roadway, so there is this kind of separation of the roadway from the driveway. And it does kind of come right up to where the kind of the community area is. There's not really much more room to do anything like that. And typically, I can't, maybe Noah can recall the distancing. We just don't have the distance that we normally would require with a VUNERF in a multifamily project. I think we want 60 feet in or something. I don't. Often arterial. Yeah, often arterial. So you would need more depth to do a true VUNERF.
So this entire parking area is within 60 feet of the arterial?
Pardon?
This entire parking area is within 60 feet of the arterial?
No.
So I would just add, so the project was exempt from the VUNERF requirements, so we didn't analyze it per the VUNERF, but speaking from memory of the ordinance, it doesn't meet all of the specific criteria, one of which would be the distance of the VUNERF beginning from the East Cotati setback, because that is an arterial street. And then obviously the vehicular traffic cannot travel through the shared communal space as would be expected with the VUNERF. However, this project does incorporate significant amount of VUNERF-like features.
Thanks.
Hi, I wanted to ask, because I was looking at the designs, and I think it's really great use of the space. One question about when you said that they can serve it, does that mean Recology is going to pull in to this space, or does that mean it's going to be out on East Cotati?
Yeah, maybe Noel can add to this as well. Right now, they haven't committed one way or the other. I think they're waiting to see how the project looks. I don't know, but we've asked that specifically. Are you going to put the bins inside or outside? The conversation came up at Planning Commission, and there seemed to be kind of various opinions on whether or not the truck should pull into that area, especially given the permeable surface area. As well, there are, I'm a little concerned about bins on East Cotati Avenue. So we just don't know how they plan to serve it yet. They just, at this point, kind of almost feel like we're asking them silly questions.
Okay, I just saw a number of letters about that. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I think the people on Greenway are, they don't want, they like to pull off before they pull into Greenway to kind of get off the travel lane of East Cotati Avenue, and they're concerned that the bins would be in that area that's almost like a de-acceleration kind of lane, kind of safety lane, and also helps with visibility. Right. I mean, yeah, so we just don't know how Recology is going to want to do it at this point.
Okay.
But we also, there's not the number of bins that I think people are concerned that there's going to be. So
Okay, and then my second question is, I was looking at the designs and I struggled to see where the visitor parking was. Can you just show us where?
Yeah, it's hard to see, but this
Like I see the
one-
garages, just not the visitor parking.
Let's go back to this. I think it's in, if it's not, okay. So those, whoops, why is this going? Oh no, go back to the, all the way to the very beginning. There, stop there. Could you make make it larger so we're not a shared screen? So those are 2-car parking garages there. And the guest parking is that center area.
Okay, that little space in between.
That little space in between, that it's not, does not have a garage door on it. So it's just, say, as a guest, they wouldn't have a garage, they would pull into that space.
Okay.
But it
so-
meets our standard for a parking space, which is 9 by 24, I believe, or
Okay.
9 by 18, excuse me.
So that makes 10 spaces then, right?
No, that's only 9, because there's 2 for each primary unit,
Right?
so that's 8. And then we have 1 guest parking space.
Oh, there isn't one on the
other
other side?
facade is designed a little more differently to give more downstairs room to one of the other projects. Excuse me, one of the units. So the other facade, or the other building, I think if you look at if you're used to looking at floor plans, page of your packet, page.
A2.0 is the plan page that has.
Yeah, I'm talking that on my packet. It's very small. It's number 68, I think, package page 68.
Yeah, that's right. We don't have packet page numbers on the plans.
Oh, you don't? Okay, yeah, then I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, we do. I see it. 68. Oh, okay. Online, I see it. It's the A2.0 one?
That's correct.
Okay.
Um,
I see what you're saying. Okay. So then for the ADUs, I don't know, I have an ADU at my house and we have one couple live there and they have 2 cars, right? So with 2 ADUs with 4 cars and 1 spot for both, they're going to end up on the street, right? Is that the presumption?
I mean, they're either going to end up, assuming everyone has the cars, the 2 cars, they're either going to end up parked in a tandem arrangement on that parking area, so there'll be people parking in front of the garage, or they're going to end up on the street. And you have to realize state law doesn't allow us to basically ask for that parking. We can't require parking for ADUs, especially when they're right next to a high quality transit station.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, on that same topic, didn't I read in the packet that it also might be possible for the landlord to arrange to assign some of the garage parking to the ADUs?
Yeah, the landlord can do a few different things, and if this is the primary concern of the council is the parking, let me talk about some of the things that I've discussed with them. So the landlord could do, because these are not going to be individual owned units, they have discretion over who parks where and can assign lots accordingly. Additionally, we could adopt a policy that it says that one of my concerns is that they use these for storage and not for parking, and which usually is what's causing the parking problems that we experience in Cotati. It's not that our parking is so small; it's that people aren't using the parking. So we could have them have a policy that there is no storage in here, that you have to park your vehicles inside there. A kind of more extreme approach we could take here, and I'm not fond of it architecturally, but it might be a solution, is we don't have those be garages and have those be open carports. Which would, one, it would prevent them from becoming workshops and storage areas, and and then there'd be more than one space for each unit, and that might be an approach to take that the council could consider. And I've talked about it with the developer, and they're amenable to that.
Yeah, I am still a little bit worried about the parking, because there is no parking on East Cotati Avenue.
No.
I do not want people running across the street, across 5 lanes of traffic to go park on Beverly. They will try and park on Breen, which is already too small, and those places have 1-car garages, and people are parking there. And Santero, as you pointed out, is really, that's not a place to go. So I really want to be sure that either via a parking management plan or what do we have so that the vehicles that they are in control of are parked on site, because it's not a neighborhood where you can park, you know, in front and kind of walk up. And with the garage doors, I understand what you're saying. It makes it a little bit more private, but people aren't going to want to be having someone in an ADU park in front of their garage. And it's kind of like if there's one guest spot, that means guests can't use it, and the ADUs will have to use it. And because we live in a college town, we know that it's likely that it's going to be college students that it'll get rented to. They will have a car. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to, you know, from the get-go set up a situation where, you know, people are fighting over where to park their vehicles. So I don't know how we manage that. If it's a management plan, you know, assigned parking, you know, but it seems like we have to at least acknowledge that each of the units and each of the ADUs are going to have a vehicle. So how do you, you know, how do you manage that?
Yeah. Well, I offered some suggestions. I can also, you know, say with other communities, we have one of the, we have just basically 2 parking spaces per unit, no matter of size. It could be a 6-bedroom home. It could be a studio apartment. We require the same amount of parking, which is 2 units per size. A lot of communities, and in fact our housing element, talks about us reevaluating parking and considering the amount of parking based on square footage. So the 9 spaces breaks out to 1.5 parking spaces per unit. And if you start to look at other jurisdictions, as well as what's in our own housing element, which we haven't brought forward yet, but we're completely in line with that level of parking for that size of unit. There's nothing really out of whack here. I share your concerns.
Understand that, but when you put a door on something, it's mine. And that's just the way people
sure.
kind of see that. They're not going to, I'm imagining that the person in the main residence is not going to say, here, have my garage door opener and you can park your ADU unit car in my garage. I just, I don't see that happening. Yeah.
Would it be possible to hear from the developer about what his thoughts about carport would be? Or would that, I'm curious to know if that would increase your costs or?
Well, oh.
Hi, my name's Noel. I'm the owner of the property. And I'm completely open to suggestions with the parking. I definitely don't want it to be a problematic thing. I think where JP is leaning with the no garage door certainly rules away the possibility of the storage. I think having the garage door is ideal for safety. I'm sure people would be happier to have it, that are staying there. But at the same time, we're happy to work on recommendations, what you guys think is the best solution for the parking. I know we're inside the limits with the parking, but I completely understand where you're going given the neighbourhood. So I think a parking plan in place, and we're not, like each of the main units doesn't necessarily have to have the 2 units. We're willing to divide it up on your recommendation to what you think is the best thing. When I'm up here, I'll also say on the garbage, I've been talking to Recology. They said they do pick up on 902 East Cotati. They said they will give us an answer. They're working on it. I've been pushing them hard. It's hard to get an answer from them. So my hands are tied a little bit on it, but I'm ringing them every 2 or 3 days, I promise. I'm looking to get answers on it too. Okay. And if there's any other questions, I'm willing to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you?
Question. Sure. I had a question. When I'm looking at the illustration of the housing, is there a way to make those 2-car garages make them single doors? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of doors there, garage doors, so that then they can be assigned kind of easier. Versus it looks like there's 2 here and 2 there, so it looks like they belong to that.
I'm sure it's a possibility. I can't give an honest answer because I don't know about the space, exactly what's required. JP might be able to answer that, or the architect, he's on Zoom. But I don't know if a dividing wall leaves it too tight. I don't know to fit inside the requirements for single.
I think that would make it more kind of like they're assigned versus they belong to this unit or that unit.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Looks like the architect has his hand up on Zoom, if we'd like to go to him.
Sure.
Hello, good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. My name is Juancho C. Isidoro Jr. I'm the architect for the project. I just wanted to, I have actually a different presentation, but I'm going to skip through that and go straight to the issue at hand regarding the parking. One suggestion that we could provide is have another guest parking, a second guest parking on the opposite side, on the other building to match the upper one. So right now, it's a little different on the ground floor, where the second unit number 2, is enlarged. It has a ground floor habitable space. And instead of that, we can do exactly the same thing as we are proposing on the opposite building, which is 4 garages with a guest parking in the middle. So that would give us a total of 10 parking spaces instead of 9. Now, I was trying to contact Noel, the owner, to ask them if that would be acceptable, but I thought I'd just bring it up here now, because that would be an easy change for us to do if he's acceptable to it.
Thank you for that. Yes, Kay?
Yeah, I'm just kind of building on Sylvia's idea. If having the 2-car garages turned into one is, or 2-car garages turned into 2 1-car garages, another possibility would be to put a door on the guest spaces, and in that way they could be individual garages for the ADUs. That might be another way of doing it. I don't know if the space would allow that.
I guess, JP, along those lines there is, are we required to have guest parking? Can it just be that it's only residential parking, and then if people happen to have guests, then you might be able to get into your suggestion of tandem parking if I had guests at my house, but that way.
With cottage housing, remember it's a unique ordinance. You have authority to do really whatever you want, especially within reason. If there's a certain standard like that you have the one guest parking, you can easily eliminate that and say we're satisfied with the parking under these conditions. That authority is given to you within the ordinance itself to tweak a project the way you may like. That's really embarrassing. Sorry.
Okay.
So yes, the answer to that is yes. And then also, if you do want to go down this path, we can condition it that they either provide individual garage doors or they make a carport. I don't know if it will all fit that way. Once you start putting garage doors, you need more space just because there's rails and there's just equipment.
Right.
And they've kind of really maximized the amount of space, the building, that they can put on a small lot like this. So we could work on something like that where either you carport it or you individual lot, or you provide the 2 additional spaces for the ADUs, and then guest parking will have to fend for itself either in front or something like that, as well as include a parking management plan. That's an easy condition that I can add if the council chooses.
Okay. So if I kind of can summarize what I've heard folks say is that we want to be sure that we're accommodating enough parking for the 4 units and the ADUs, however combination of you achieving that, including a parking management plan, so that we kind of know that it's thought through rather than just haphazard, and how you design it. I've heard some different ways to design that in a step.
I don't feel like that's a consensus. We haven't even had our discussion yet. We haven't had public comment, so I'm completely held off because I'm done with questions. I'm waiting for a conversation.
Okay, all right, okay. So thus far, that's what I've heard people say. So any other questions from anyone? Okay, then I will open this up for the public hearing. So we'll start here in the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Not seeing any. Then we will go to the Zoom attendees.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon. Mayor Harvey, that'll end public comment.
Okay, then I'll bring it back. And so we'll let you want to start there, Ben?
Sure.
Yeah.
A couple things. First, the garbage bin issue. I'm in general uncomfortable with just saying whatever Recology wants to do, they can do. I think we need to start thinking about, is it appropriate to have garbage bins that completely obstruct the bike lane at least 1, usually 2 days a week? That's problematic to me. So I think to just keep saying, yeah, just do whatever you want to do is problematic. So I think we need to, as a city, think about how do we want to handle garbage along streets that don't have parking and have a bike lane, et cetera, and not just leave it up to Recology. So I'd like, the city to actually be involved in that discussion and not just say, applicant, talk to Recology and work out whatever you want. That's one request. I don't see a condition that we could put on this project that makes sense to me, unless it is reasonable to put a condition that garbage pickup be inside off the street. The truck pulls off. The bins not be placed in the street on East Cotati. I'm not sure how to make that work. Maybe they have to build a little cutout into the parkway where the bins sit so they're not out in the bike lane. I'm not sure what the possible resolution there is. On parking, I agree with JP that the biggest issue we have down there with existing nearby developments is that people don't use their parking for parking. And so I'd like several of the possibilities here. I think putting more garage doors on actually goes in the opposite direction, and will make more of the spaces into workshops and storage. On the other hand, I don't like a can't use them for storage rule, because then a family that moves in without a car, which is actually possible there, just a block from the SMART station, would be penalized by having a big empty space. So I like the leave off garage doors and make them carports, and have a condition of leasing that your carport always has to be available to park a car. That seems like a reasonable way to get there. I'm comfortable with the amount of parking. I think 9 spaces for a total of whatever it is, 5,000 square feet is fine. So I'm fine with that. Thanks.
Okay, Sylvia?
No, I think the other input that I had was just about the garbage collection. Is what I thought I heard is that because of the pervious pavement, it's a little more difficult for the bigger trucks to come in. Does Recology ever can there be like an agreement that on that street they use a smaller truck or something that goes and picks up the garbage versus a big heavy duty trucks that come in? So that was a thought that I had. Other than that, I think I was fine with the project. And I still kind of like the idea of kind of looking at the garages and seeing if either turning them into individual ones with doors. And I know that there's spacing issues, but I think also privacy and security for the cars and things like that. So That's just a thought, but, you know, whatever kind of staff and developers, but just making space so that ADUs have a place to park as well.
Thank you. Regarding the parking, I think we've got, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got 10 bedrooms in this whole project. So for me, 9 spots for 10 bedrooms seems reasonable. If there might be a couple that only has 1 car or a single person occupying. I tend to like the idea of using a carport rather than a garage, just because I feel like that would alleviate most of the problems, given that you might have one unit that only has 1 car and another unit with 2, and if all the spots are available to be divvied up, then it seems like that could work well. And I know that people are very creative. One of my best friends lives directly next door to this project, and I go over there every Wednesday night to play board games. And so I'm very familiar with the area, and what he does is he's one person living in a 2-bedroom unit, and he has an informal arrangement where a neighbor pays him small amount of money and uses his second parking spot. So, you know, if the spots are available to be shared, people will work it out. I feel like people will work it out, especially if they know what they're getting into when they move into the place. From a broader perspective, I just wanted to make a comment, since this is our very first cottage housing project. We worked very hard on this ordinance over the last couple years, and I'm really happy to see it coming to fruition. At the time that we made the ordinance, I advocated, and I was very much in the minority on this viewpoint, but I advocated that we make these projects by right, that if a developer came in and met all of the cottage housing requirements, that it could be approved without city council discretion. It was decided at the time that the council really needed that discretion in order to serve as a safety valve for problems that might come, like this parking issue maybe would be one of them. So we do have discretion over this, but I would like to strongly advocate for us sending a message that if a project that meets all the requirements like this comes through, then we're going to strongly support it. Because I'd like future developers who are looking at how this project came through to see it as sort of like a certainty that they can rely on this ordinance, that if they follow all the things staff wants them to do and follow the rules of the cottage housing ordinance, then unless there's some really unforeseen problem, then that project's going to get approved without us nitpicking it to death. So I think we're kind of headed in that direction, and I'm glad to see that, and I'm really happy to see this project. So thank you for bringing it forward.
Okay.
I feel like I brought up the concerns that I had, and like I said at the beginning, I'm really excited to see this, and it looks really cool. And like I said, I have an ADU, and I think they're lovely and wonderful and a great option for smaller families or students. So I think this is really great.
Okay, I have one more question, JP. There's a lot of trees on that property. Will they all be going?
Yeah, the existing there's trees both on site and surrounding it. The existing trees will be gone, and then the landscape plan that's proposed in the thing will be the one that's installed. As well, they'll be installing the street trees in the landscape medium between the sidewalk and the curb.
Now, yeah, I saw that there were trees back there, but it was unclear whether, especially in the back, backing those existing condos, were we leaving the existing trees or were we replacing the trees? You know, because those folks have already been there and they're used to kind of having that buffer. And that's...
You know, I know there were trees on both sides of the fence, and I'm sorry, I just can't recall if it were if the significant ones were one side or the other. I know what you're talking about. But, you know, we can look at that a little closer with the landscape plan, and if there is a tree that can be preserved, you know, we're talking about a small space, 4 feet back there, and so we don't want to make sure we don't compromise the root system and then create a hazard. But I'll take a closer look and see if there's something we could preserve. I've been viewing it as the site would essentially be cut down.
It was a little unclear. I wasn't sure. Yes, Kay?
I just had what she just reminded me. The one other comment is a lot of the plants and trees and everything that was included in the landscaping looked like they were all non-native, and I would just love to offer that it would be really great whenever possible to include native, drought-tolerant type of landscaping moving forward for our flora and fauna.
Yeah, of course. I want to say that when I reviewed it, I found them to be California native. Now, whether or not they were Sonoma County native is a different question, but I'll look at that.
Yeah, no, a lot of them were.
Yeah.
I just want to, give a yay, that's great, please do more of that.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that you've heard a lot about the garbage, so I think that you can help with getting that resolved. I know that tends to be an issue. I concur with Councilmember Ford. We don't want those out in the street. I don't know whether they've considered doing I don't know what you want to call it, group garbage rather than individual bins. I know that that's been a really big downside to Santero Way is everybody has 3 bins and they all drag them out and you can't even get down that street on garbage day. So if there are kind of ways that we can work towards managing that when we have a development, I think better off, because even at 1, 2, 3, 6 units, you're going to have, 6 times 3 is 18 bins.
Well, they're going to be shared bins.
It's shared bins?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So then they won't be drug out too.
No, they will. Right. We don't know the exact number of bins yet.
Okay.
But we don't anticipate that the 500 square foot ADU 1 bedroom is going to be filling up the same size bin as you might be envisioning. And they will be able to share the larger 64-gallon bin.
Okay.
It's quite a bit. I mean, I use a 32-gallon bin. I put it out once a month, and so it's but anyway. I understand it. We do have. I'm looking for the condition that we do have about working with Recology, and we also have a planning commissioner that works with Recology that can help us with this. What I can't promise the council, I don't feel like I can promise the council, is that we can tell Recology how they're going to do their pickup. But we can certainly apply pressure and make recommendations about what we'd like to see there.
Yeah, so I agree with Councilmember Ford that at some point we may need to kind of look at that and kind of say this is what we want in these type of developments, because I agree with Vice Mayor. I think this is our first one, but if this is the direction that we're going in, we maybe need to give some thought about that from the perspective of the cottage ordinance, so that we can kind of get our arms around that, so in the future we're better on that. And then the parking, I think you have a whole lot of input on that. I think a parking management plan is going to be key, and while I would hope that there would be fewer cars, I don't know that we can assume that the ADUs will have 0 cars. So however they want to manage that, and however you guys agree to that, I think that we have to come to some place where everybody has a spot. I don't think that it's fair to, kind of leave it up to people to fend for themselves, because, it's going to be last person in. It's going to be left out in the cold. So with that, yes?
Well, so I'd like to propose that we add a condition that garage doors be removed.
Okay.
And that the parking spaces be carport style rather than enclosed garages, for the purpose of ensuring that they stay as parking. The applicant was open to that possibility, and I'd like to see that added before we approve it.
And that would help then with the not having to redesign that other unit,
right?
Correct? Because then there would be.
Well, it would still be 9 spaces, but they could be individually assigned as needed,
right?
Rather than, automatically go with the primary unit.
Right, right. Is everyone okay?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I feel comfortable with the number of spaces at that point. This is so close to the SMART station. This is where we're supposed to be doing high-density housing that's not car-dominated. It's right by the train station, so it's not impossible that someone could choose to live there without a car. And we're also, this structure will be here for a long time, so we're thinking about how cars are being used now, but this structure will probably still be here in 50 years when it could look very different, and it's still going to be next to the train station. So I like the idea of giving those people in that one unit a little more living room instead of giving it to a car.
Yeah. Is everybody okay with adding that as a, what, I see you're making a face.
Well, I don't know, because our garage was turned into an ADU, I know I really miss having a garage, and the idea of a garage for me is a door, and I don't think we have a lot of crime here, but it certainly feels safer to have my car behind a door rather than just out. I think this, it is kind of set back, and you'd have to go all the way into there to find the car. So I think that changes it a little bit. But I'm thinking, young woman, a student by herself, coming in at night. I don't know. I see garage doors as something of a security thing, not just for the cars, but for the people driving. So I don't know. I hesitate, but I'm not sure I would vote against it.
Along to kind of follow on to that, are there doors from the garage into the units? There are, okay. I just was trying to follow along that safety concern there.
Yeah, if we did individual garage, might have to be some modification, but right now, yeah, there is access from the garage directly to the primary units.
Okay.
So we'd have to do, the tweaking that it would require is not much. It's easy to do. Anyway, I'm happy to let the council debate this further and go with any direction that you and the project applicant is willing to go down.
So do you feel that strongly about it that you want to rediscuss it, or are you okay with us removing the doors and leaving it as carports so that everybody has a spot?
Well, doesn't it, I guess this would be, I don't know who to ask this question of, but would that reduce the value of the homes as well to not have garages and rather have carports? Anybody know?
If the council could go either way, and I would like to get the applicant to come up and agree to one way or the other, you could leave it to us to decide. The message is clear. You want parking for each of the units. If we can do that with individual garage doors, or if the answer is going to be that that it will be carports or some variation of or something along those lines, we can figure that out, I think. And you're willing to get rid of the guest spot and not go to 10, or pardon?
Not get rid of it.
No, not get rid of it, but
He means having
I guess
10
I was
rather than 9.
stuck on the counting the bedrooms, or I don't know where I was, but.
Well, he had said that they could match it so that it's 10, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, the architect had said that they could change the floor plan of the other building, and so that you could get an additional parking space.
I guess if I'm the holdout, then I could compromise. If we can have 10 spaces, then I will give up the garage doors.
Well, I agree with Councilmember Rivers. I mentioned earlier that I think a garage would add more value and provide safety and security for the renter there. But, maybe if staff could come back with more information, or do we need to make a decision today on that? We need to make a decision today?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We either have to condition it or tell them what we want. Yes.
So, I don't know, probably when you were running elections, you've walked down Santero Way and walked every house there. They all have garages, and yet their cars are all in the street. That's the whole point of this discussion is, I mean, that's too blanket a statement, of course. That's not true for everybody, but a large portion of garages are not used for parking cars, and that's what causes a huge part of our parking issue. And so if we say, leave them all as garages, then we're making the parking problem worse, not better. So we could try to write some condition that says the landlord will ensure that all garages are available for parking cars, but we don't have any way to, we're not going to devote staff time, I hope, to going down there and checking every week that the garages are available for parking cars, so I don't think that's a workable solution. So I'm trying to find a way to make sure carports are easy to check that they are available for parking cars. And JP, the message for me is not every unit has to have a spot. The message is the spot should be flexible and available for cars, not used as workshops or storage spaces. So I'm okay with a condition that says somehow applicant will work with staff to ensure parking design and management such that all the design spaces are available for parking cars. But I'm not okay with just saying, yeah, give everybody a garage, because then their cars they're running across East Cotati from Beverly, they're parking on Breen, so I think we've got to find some way to ensure that those spaces are used for cars. I'm okay if they're behind garage doors, it's great, but they got to be available for cars.
Okay, I heard that. Yeah.
Your thoughts, JP? Noah?
Looking at the floor plans, it would be a significant revision to provide individual garage spaces for each and allow access to those from those units. So if they were to be carved up, the way the units are designed, it would affect the way that they're individually accessed. So staff would recommend against that, providing individual garages, so the two to now singles. I do agree that transitioning the design from garages to carports is the one that would likely address the concerns the most with regards to parking, although it doesn't address the enhanced security you get by being able to park your vehicle in a garage. But we have had this conversation numerous times about having garages directly puts cars on the street because they're not always utilized for parking. And this has been a mantra that has come up. Large numbers of conversations we've had specifically about Santero have been this conversation about the trade-offs of garages versus carports. And a majority of the requests that I have gotten from citizens has been to not allow additional garages in these neighborhoods because they don't end up getting used for parking.
Noah, can I ask you a question along those lines too? Is if they were garages, could those that belong to those units, could they then also be turned into a JADU?
They could be converted.
Which is, to Ben's point, that then they're not being utilized.
And I will say they couldn't all be converted. So there's interesting caveats with regards to JADUs and ADUs when it's multifamily. So it's good to point out these are not individually owned. These are that will have one ownership, and so when you have multifamily housing or apartment housing, there's limits on converting spaces to ADUs. So just it's a little bit of apples and oranges, but.
Okay. But I was trying to help with Ben's point that we also then, we want them to be used for parking the cars, not for other things, and that could be another thing. So, yes.
So how about that last thing I suggested, which is a condition that the applicant work with staff to design and come up with a parking management plan to ensure that spaces are available for parking until the city reduces parking requirements below what they currently have. You know, because I do want to allow, in 50 years, I don't think we'll all be owning individual cars myself, and I certainly don't want to lock them into empty spaces once they're not needed. Could we say something like that? Would that-
I do think the applicant could be required to put a lease condition that garages be used for, if a vehicle is owned by the applicant, they have to use their garage for parking. I do think that could be a condition that would allow flexibility for non-car owning families and how they use their garage, but then also could allow the garage to remain and be forced to be used as parking. The lease could specify that if you own a vehicle, it has to be parked in your designated space, and you can't not park there. And it appears the city attorney agrees.
Okay. Yes.
This still doesn't quite work for me because we're down back to not having anywhere for the ADU people to park. Because if everything's behind a garage door, then you lose that flexibility on who's parking where. So I think I'm leaning towards. I'd really like to see a carport be a carport because it feels like that's just a more elegant solution that's more flexible.
Yeah, along those lines of your safety, is it more safe to have to park in a carport and get out, or to possibly have to park a block or two away because that's the only place there is to park and have to walk to your unit because you're last person in and that one guest parking spot's already used up and the doors are closed and yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why I said if we can have 10 spaces, then I'm okay to let go of the doors. So if we can have 10 spaces, if we can do the two that are like actually the same, so that there's a space for every bedroom, then I'm okay with them all being carports.
And then we wouldn't necessarily call them guest parking. They would be assigned parking to those ADUs.
Could I ask one other possibility,
Sure.
and maybe the applicant or architect might respond? Would it be possible to give each of the primary units a one-car garage and open up the in-between spaces to be carports? So it'd be 4 single-car garages and 5 carport spaces that could then be assigned as needed to the primary. So each primary would have 1 garage space with a door into their unit, but then there'd be 5 carport spaces that could be assigned by the leases to however the owner, leases them out.
I like it.
Does that make sense?
That would be 4 and 4, right?
4 and 5.
There'd be 4 one-car garages, and then the other spots would be carport.
So the one
So
side
that
would
would
have 3 carport spaces, and the other side would have 2.
Serve the one, as long as you put,
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's still only 9 though. You need 10.
I disagree. We don't need 10. 1.5 per unit is plenty.
But there's no such thing as half a car.
You mean 6 and then leave the other ones open? 6 assigned and leave the other spaces open? Because there's 1, 2, 3, 4.
there's 4.
6 units with the ADUs. There's 6 altogether.
Right, there's 6 units. As JP and Noah pointed out, many jurisdictions for houses this small have a 1 or 1.5 parking spaces per unit requirement. That's not a new thing. That is how it's usually handled. And it's not 1.5 spaces for this unit and 1.5 spaces for that unit and 1.5 spaces for that unit. It's 9 units for the development, which then the owner would have to work with whoever's moving in and decide who gets them. So that's a possibility. I'd be curious whether staff or the applicant has any thoughts about that different arrangement, which kind of splits the difference between 8 garage spots and none.
So I think, Sylvia, what he's saying is there's 6 units. So of the 6 units, some people may have 2 cars and some people may have 1 car, and between the single garages and the carport spots, the 9 should be enough to park cars. That's what you're suggesting, right?
Yes, you went to
Okay. Yes, you may. Please. Since we're talking about your development.
No. So I think the overall problem is parking, and if we end up, as the architect mentioned, adding the extra so-called guest space, that brings us up to 10 parking spaces. That therefore leaves us 2 for each primary unit and 1 for the ADU. They can all be open. They don't need to be garages, or 4 of them can be the double garage doors with the 2 open ones, and that way you have some flexibility. I'm open to doing it either way, leaving it all open if you think it's better from a parking point of view that forces people to park in there, but also leaving it open. But I think if we move to the 10 spaces that are open, that way we ultimately have 10 parking spaces, which is more than the requirements. So I think overall, not to tell you it's your business, but I think that's the best way of fixing the parking, because then it's all the parking's being utilised. You have 10 spots. As you said, you've got 1 for each bedroom then. And I don't know, I think going 4 individual, I think it'll change the appearance of the thing. Like, it's very mixed and matched. And I don't know if it'll work with the floor plans also, if the access points will work that way. But I think if we do that we end up with 10 open spaces. I understand where you're coming from, where the closed garage door is better from a safety point of view, but it stops, as you said, forcing people to park there. So, and as you said, if we end up using it as storage, we're also pushing somebody away from parking. So I think the best plan is to leave it all open and have 10 spaces, and I'd be willing to obviously do that. So if that sounds reasonable.
You okay?
I'm not happy to give more space over to cars, no. And there's no way this space should be required to have 10 spots, so, but that's fine. I won't vote against the overall project, of course. It's a great project.
Okay.
So I'll compromise on the doors to get the 10th, if you're willing to compromise on the 10 to get rid of the doors.
Just saying, I agree. I think that 10 is too much. I think we should have 9, but I also support the project, so I'm not willing to vote no over that.
We okay? We clear? Are we clear as mud?
I would love to say yes, but I
Okay.
didn't understand. What I sensed was there was a disagreement on the council on the number. I think we are agreeing that they're going to be open, and the applicant has said that, but I heard a disagreement from the council on the number of parking spaces.
I think it was in that they were going to open up another one, so there's 10 parking spaces, but make them all open, carports. And that's
Right,
where the
and then-
disagreement with some council members feel that 10 is too many, that 9 is enough.
So he doesn't know
I
how
guess I'm
many
still
of us
confused.
think which.
Susan, you haven't weighed in. You're the only one who hasn't weighed in.
Okay. Well, since parking is a continual problem, and while I would love for everyone to take the train and take their bikes and take everything, I think having gone out into the public so many times, parking is really what drives people bonkers. And this is a great project, and it looks beautiful, and I think keeping everyone on site and kind of working within that, I think for our first one, it feels to me that we should, move forward with enough spots for everybody. What that's going to mean is if someone has guests, they're going to either have to tandem share or their guest is going to have to park somewhere else. But I want to make sure that everybody has a spot. I don't want to be last man out because I know it would be me that would be late and I'd pull in and there'd be no place to be. So that's kind of where I'm at. So we are you and so I hear Sylvia and Kay and myself wanting 10 spots and you and Laura wanting 9 spots. So do you want to?
You can outvote us. You have my permission.
Okay. So this is public hearing. I can close the public hearing. We're done, and we need to adopt the attached resolution granting approval of design review and cottage housing development plan to allow for construction of 4 residential units and 2 ADUs at 902 East Cotati Avenue. So that's what we need to adopt.
But if you want to add a condition, somebody has to fold that into the motion, right?
With the condition of staff working with the owner to make sure that there are 10 parking spots with no doors. Is that what I heard? And to have you work on getting the garbage squared away. However that happens. And you will also make sure that the trees are kind of set the way they're, yeah. And yes, Kay?
And native plants wherever possible.
And native plants wherever possible. And, yes, and?
I just want to be clear, are we making a suggestion about the plants, or are we adding a condition? Because I don't feel comfortable adding a condition that sort of nitpicks at the level of what plants we plant.
Okay.
It could be, Madam Mayor, if I may, it could be addressed as part, there's a condition requiring a landscape plan, and so that could be a suggestion that's folded into the plan at the time that it's submitted back to the city for review.
But before we add any conditions, can staff remind us of our existing ordinances around drought tolerant and planting plans? Don't we have some ordinances that address those already?
I thought we did.
Yeah, we do. Like I said, my review was that they were native to California. I don't know how native. Kay would like them to be like Sonoma County native, which are, you got to go to the stock. The overriding condition is what's called the WELO, the Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance, and that guides, the type of plants that you can plant based on a water budget, which is actually kind of dictated by the state at what level you can do. That's the primary objective, and then I think we have, I want to say that they're mostly native. Unfortunately, we had the landscape architect at the Planning Commission and could have spoke to this directly, but I will take another dive at that and make sure that, the majority, or the supermajority, so to speak, is native. That was one of the things I felt impressed about in my recollection, recalling the review, was like, wow, they did a good job of picking native plants. I'm not a botanist, though, from Sonoma County that could tell you exactly if they're all Sonoma natives.
And I don't necessarily have that be a condition.
Okay, all right, that was my, okay, all right.
Whenever possible.
All right, and so you're okay with that? Okay, everybody okay with that? All right. So, those are the conditions that I have suggested. Has anyone? So all we need is a motion to.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? We did it. It was tough, and we have moved this on, and thank you very much for bearing with us, and thank you for coming forward and answering our questions. So with that, we will move on to the regular agenda. And I believe that we are going to have a mid-year budget review. And I'm guessing that's probably Angela. Thank you, JP.
Absolutely. I'll give JP a minute here. So good evening, Mayor, council members, fellow staff, our greater community, both here and remote tonight. We're presenting the mid-year report for the city as of December 31st, 2022. And I have to apologize, the first page of the report that's in the packet, somehow auto-generated, that will be replaced. It is in the actual Word document, correct, has the title. Kevin, is amazing, but he didn't create the report. I did with my staff, so that will get replaced and updated. So within this report, I will go over the citywide all funds overview budget to actuals, then drill down a little bit further into our major funds, which are comprised of our general fund and then our individual enterprise funds, then concluding with our overall cash and investments portfolio as of, again, the point in time of December 31st, 2022. So for the citywide, we're looking at all of the funds grouped by their specific fund type. So here's a summary of the citywide revenues and expenses compared to budget as of December 31st, 2022. So we're looking back in time, as well as the comparative actual revenues and expenses as of 12/31/2022 for each fund type. So overall revenues and expenditures citywide are really in line with our expectations. And I know it seems odd to say that they're in line when you see this 33%. How can that be halfway through a year? But things are adjusted for actual cash basis compared to accrual basis, which you typically see in accounting. And again, the expenses are at 29% of budget overall. So again, as a reminder, most of the activity for the city is managed within the general fund. The two other major funds are the enterprise services, which are really a business-like operations. So you can kind of compare them to other income statements and balance sheets of public businesses that are out there. So we'll dive into each one of these major funds in just a moment. And I really do want to take the opportunity to recommend anyone that's interested in learning more about these types of funds, what the different functions of these different funds, what the purpose of using the funds are, and more importantly, sometimes what we can't use specific funds for. The city has our full online budget at www.cotatiCity.org, where there's full discussion about each one of these types of funds, as well as their related budgets. So fund type variances, where revenues are less than 40%, expenditures are greater than 60% of budget. So general fund revenue, so it's a big piece, right? So this is where most of our funds come in and they go to our regular operations. The difference for the revenues are primarily due to sales tax receipts. As we'll go into my favorite slide next, where we talk about the different revenues, sales tax makes them pretty much 50% of our general fund revenues. And we've only received 4 of the 6 months of revenues because we received them 2 months in lag. So when you divide 4 by 12, you get 33%. So we really are in line with where our budget is and where it should be. We're not proposing any adjustments at this point in time. Capital projects are subject to a significant amount of timing, weather delays, funding sources, putting things out to bid, getting better bids, what we need to do to get these projects done. So they can flex over different years, and so those budgets also then adjust according to those. And I also have to do a quick plug for everyone that wants to understand more about where our capital projects are at any point in time. We have an amazing capital projects portal online, and it's available. It's in the report here, but it's at tinyurl.com, //Cotati projects. And it's amazing. It gives you timelines, projects, where they are, what the budgets are, even before they go out. And so it's pretty interactive and engaging, and you can actually sign up to get updates on any of the projects you're interested that might be in your area. The next one that really has adjustments are those internal service revenues, which are different due to the timing of transfers of funds that are required for purchasing of replacements of fleet vehicles and or the compensated absences pieces that are funded primarily towards the end of the fiscal year. So it's really, again, a timing piece. So getting into our general fund. So this is the mid-year analysis for that. General fund operating revenues through the mid-year are approximately $227,000 less, or 53% below the same period from 21-22. And although the revenues are only at 40% of the budget, as previously discussed, this is due to the timing with receiving some of the larger revenue sources, such as the sales tax. Last year, at this same point in time, we were at 34.9% of budget for revenues. So I kind of already went over the sales tax, so I jumped over that in advance. So overall cumulative mid-year general fund, alternatively the expenditures, decreased from the previous year by approximately that same 5.4%, or $224,000. Most of this decrease was due to the decrease in other expenses, offset by the increase in our contract services, primarily related to our insurance, professional services, including the housing projects, as well as IT services are increasing professional service costs. So on packet page 135 or PDF page 4 of the mid-year report, there's the expenditure summary that is broken out both by category as well as by type. So overall spending for the general fund departments are consistent prior year with the noted decreases, so by department, there's been increases in the administrative services department, the community development, and recreation. So for both the administrative services and the community development, it's primarily related to additional staff added to the team to meet the community and state reporting requirements. This increased staffing generates additional salary and benefits costs, as well as allocated contract services. We allocate most of our professional contract services that service the whole city based on the FTE. When your FTE increases proportionately, your contract services that are allocated to those departments increases. And then the recreation, of course, since COVID, they've just been doing so many more events, getting things back up and going again. And so really that is them getting back to more normal operations. Alternatively, spending by type in the general fund further shows that the decrease related to the timing of transfers, which is correlated to the capital projects. We don't have to transfer out general funds monies to cover the capital projects because they've been delayed, or we use our special revenue funds to fund the capital projects as much as possible and then use our general funds. And this was offset by increases in contract services, other expenses, and utilities. So again, here's my little graph about our revenues here for our general fund. And the categories, really it shows the importance of sales tax to the city. And if you can break that sales tax bar pretty much in half, you'll have the breakout between Measure S funds as well as Bradley Burns. So half of it would be our Bradley Burns tax. The other half would be directly due to Measure S. So then on the bottom corner, we have our other revenues that were smaller but still increasing. So we have public safety, public works, charges for services related to those, as well as rent income and investment earnings and contributions. So that make up the bottom corner, which haven't had a significant change. We did have a little bit less in code enforcement this year, but again, those change with what's happening out in the neighborhoods and what we're affecting for that. So transfers in, just for note, it's at the 82,000. Those are derived specifically from the Public Safety Special Revenue Fund, which receives special revenue primarily from the Prop 172 Supplemental Law Enforcement Services, which is also called SLESA. And these are transferred in order to support law enforcement services. So those are specifically for law enforcement offsets that are transferred in. Moving on to our other major funds, we have the enterprise fund, again, business type operations. We have the rates. So these are our water and sewer funds. So the following table includes the cumulative revenues and expenses in a comparison for the first half of the year. The water and wastewater fund revenues are made up of a combination of charges for services, so that's the utility bills, and then connection fees and other revenues, as well as development fees. So the revenues compared to the prior year are slightly down for water, primarily due to reduced connection fee revenues from the development at Kessing Ranch, as well as reduced water usage associated with water conservation efforts and the continued drought. So people have been using less water, the less of the variable costs, less revenue coming in to cover that cost. So comparatively, the wastewater is slightly up in total. That's really just due to, and I wanted to make sure I broke this out in here, is that debt payment from the water fund to the sewer fund, which is a part of our rate plan in order to put more funds into the sewer funds based on more services and projects and items they had. And so there was a long-term loan that was between the two funds, and we did a final payment on that, so that'll be the final loan payment for that loan. But you take that away, and again, wastewater almost mirrors water where it's reduced. This is again the reduced water usage creates less of a volume, so when we do our volume adjustment for wastewater, it also comes down when people use less water in a prior year. So that's the revenue piece for fiscal year 22-23. Most of the expenses are in line with budget. One significant difference is, again, that increased capital project and the interfund debt service and the wastewater and water fund. So that's that expense on the water side and the revenue on the wastewater side. And then also the increased cost for wastewater, even though we're charging less, getting less revenue, the still cost of processing the wastewater is continuing to rise. So last but not least is the cash and investments for the city as of December. So the total cash balance of our pooled cash funds, oops, let me jump forward here, exceeds $19.7 million in our combined pooled funds. We've made sure that these funds are held in investment funds that are in line with our investment policy, and it well exceeds our operational needs for the next 6 months in the fiscal year. And just to better explain, we have a pooled cash funds, so each one of our funds does not have a separate bank account where they hold their different cash in, so it's all pulled together and based on expenses and adjustments, and they have their balance in their funds in our pooled accounts. So the table herein shows, there we go, the cash and investments held by the city, broken out by that pool of funds, which is primarily LAIF, some in RBC as well as some in SCIP. So LAIF is the state's investment portfolio pool. SCIP is a Sonoma County pool, and then RBC is a local where we just have some CDs, but mostly cash sitting in there right now waiting to be put into CDs as of December 31st. Alternatively, it has that same dollar amount, that $19.7 million, broken out by how it's dispersed in the pool funds, showing that the majority of the cash is held related to the general fund, which is about 38% of the balance, followed by the combined total for special revenues, which has approximately 20%, followed by wastewater at 19% and water at 12%. So overall, the budget is primarily on track. We're continuing to really dive into the budget. Except for identified variances, expenditures and revenues are tracking along the lines as expected. We're going to continue to monitor these variances and provide updated information to council during our budget development, which is a kind of a big piece of the beginning of the mid-year report, is that we are in budget thoughts right now, and we have tentative schedules for budget workshops. And this is kind of the big kickoff to that before we'll go from this strategic planning, which is scheduled tentatively for March 7th, then followed up pretty quickly on April 4th with our general fund study session. And then April 18th, right behind it, is our enterprise fund budget study session. So we really want to make sure we're making these dates out there so we can get feedback if there's concerns, questions. These are things that are in the works now for the next fiscal year. So that ends my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Looking this way, questions? Yes, Laura. I had a question about our I'm so sorry, blinking. Just having an out-of-body moment. I had a question about our policies that we came up with to deal with pension obligation bonds and our trust account. Are we making any contributions to that this year?
We have not yet made contributions because that wasn't a part of the budget process for them. So this will be a part of our study sessions and everything coming up as to how we will be implementing that and providing funding for that.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for blanking in the middle of that.
It's okay.
115 Trust. You got it.
Yes, Beth?
Maybe I asked this too much, but it's painful to see 15 million sitting in an account bearing 0.21%. So LAIF does not create any sort of CD equivalents that we could put some of that money into and get a little bit better return?
So one of the things, LAIF currently has a monthly yield of 425 currently right now. And so we are working on an investment plan that's a part of our strategic objectives for this year. And we're really trying to get to it because it is something that we want to better diversify and ladder again those investments, and to bring council a revised investment policy and a plan to initiate some of that again.
Okay, great. And you'll educate us about what our latitude is, right? I mean, we're very restricted in what we can do with the money, right?
Yes, we are highly restricted as to what we can do with our money, not just by our own policy, but state.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Not going to the casino, Ben. Sylvia? No questions. Okay. If there are no questions, I will open this up for public comment. Since we have lost our audience here, we will open it up to comments the audience on Zoom. Please
Thank you, Mayor Harvey. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you would like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon. Mayor Harvey, that'll end public comment.
Okay, so this is to receive the fiscal year 2022-23 mid-year budget review and approve proposed budget adjustments, but you did not recommend any, is the way I read this. Am I correct? So we are just to receive this. So duly received. Thank you so much.
Mayor Harvey, a hand came up at the very end.
Okay.
I don't know if we want to.
All righty.
Now it's back down. Excuse me.
Oops.
Maybe for the next item.
Up, down, up, down. All right. Okay. So then we will move on to the next item, which is review of the draft city seal. So who is, why, hi there, Damien.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So this is an item about the draft city seal. So first, a quick walk down memory lane. Many years ago, we started working on this, and that put us in initial touch with the Federated Indians of the Great Rancheria, where we had run an initial design by them. It was basically an updated likeness of the Chief Katati seal that we currently have. So the feedback from the tribe was that they did not want us to continue with that seal. They want us to move to some other type of imagery for our city seal. So this was happening about the same time that we were doing our logoing work. Our logoing work, which you're all, I think, all aware of, that split off and went forward and got completed. And this one had this sort of reset and take a new path. And so that's kind of what led up to where we are today. So we started working on some new options that was looking at something different. And back in August of 2022, we had put out some real just general concepts to get people's feedback. This was an online survey that we did, as well as a council meeting that we had in November that we also talked about this. The themes that were represented were a music theme, a nature theme, and a landmarks theme, just generally categorized that way. And based on the community survey, the public largely supported a nature-based theme of some type. And in the real just concept-y thing that we were discussing at that time, it was represented by an oak tree. The second most popular theme being music of some type as a general sort of theme. And this was represented in the initial concept as just sort of the top part of the statue of Boggio, the one that's in La Plaza Park, the accordion player. The prevailing sentiment was that the oak trees are an important element, but that the tree was already already highly used by several other communities in this area, including Windsor and Oakland. So maybe an important element, but not the primary focus of the seal. And while people liked music, they thought that it should be, the general sentiment was more timeless and universal, not any particular person like the statue we have in La Plaza Park. There was also significant public comment about incorporating Cotati's hexagon layout into the seal, and this was when we got to the November meeting of the City Council. The City Council took in all this feedback and also agreed that creating a draft seal centered on the nature theme would be important, and also with strong direction to include the hexagonal shape. The ones we were looking at before were circular borders on the seals, and then potentially an element with that would tie in local native culture. So that brings us to today, and as a result, the graphic artist that we have been working with did incorporate the hexagonal shape into the border of the draft concepts that you see in the packet. And Kevin, if you put those on the screen, please. And they center on the concept art centers on the nature theme. So what you I'll just focus on what's basically inside the hexagon first. Okay, so what you see is that the hexagonal shape of the seal, and then rather than have the City of Cotati and the incorporation year around the perimeter of the circular seal, it's incorporated through a banner, and then down below it would be sort of incorporated that way. This shows this is again just a rough hand-drawn depiction of what would be the laguna running through the middle, the hills, agriculture, some trees, and the bandstand representing the musical element. The type of art that would be that this would eventually evolve into in final form is a scratch art form. So if you could scroll to the last one. This is just an example of the type of art. So it wouldn't be this rough hand drawn. It'd be more the kind of crisp scratch art style in its final form. Each one of these that were in the packet and that we have on the screen here tonight are the interior art is the same, and that's primarily what we're trying to get feedback on tonight is where we want to go with the interior art. If we're happy with it, if there's anything that we want to include in there. The border can be because the main reason is because this is a commissioned piece of art, so we need to finalize that piece. The border we can play with that for years if we wanted to, but hopefully not. but
please don't tell them that.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, we could just pick like what we want and just move forward with it tonight. So so in terms of borders, what we have is we have some different options. Some are native themed. The ones I would pick out, the ones I would just point out that are already incorporated in some of the public art that we have out there today are this is the second one that is. Can you go to the second option? Yeah. So that is what's currently on the top of the mosaic wall that's at the corner of Old Redwood Highway 116. So that already exists in the public space, and it has it definitely has a very native connotation. The other thing that's in the public space, if you want to go down a couple, is this just, again, the mosaic wall kind of brings in a mosaic idea. And then if you go down one more, if we don't want any sort of native imagery around the outside of the hexagon, this is just a simple dot pattern. This is what the original concepts back in August and the council reviewed in November had, just this simple dot pattern around the perimeter. And I will just say that just internally, this is very unscientific, but internally from a staff perspective, the one that has, it's the second one with the native imagery that's already in the public space. That's sort of one of the prevailing staff favorite. And another option to think about is, because I know this came up before, is some animal themes. That's something that could even be put in there at a small scale. Because remember, this will largely be presented in a very small scale, like on letterhead or business cards and that sort of thing. So there's not, you don't want to put too many elements in there, so it's clear what you're conveying. But you know, you could do something fun and have like a little Easter egg rooster or something in there somewhere. But anyway, with that, I will just stop there, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions?
Yeah. I have a question about, I appreciate having a laguna in there. I think that's a really good kind of naturescape to include. It's important to Cotati. I have a question on the basket weed, the Native American border design. Was that something that was run through the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria? The one that we used over, you said it's already being used. Do you know if that was also kind of?
So when the wall was designed, they looked at a lot of different basket weave patterns, and that was the one that was selected as both the most representative of a local basket weave, but also would depict the best on a wall. Okay. And to your question specifically, if the tribe had approved it,
Were they part of the review process?
I mean, we definitely gave it to them. I don't recall specifically if they approved it. They don't generally like approve things. They'll just generally tell us if they don't like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I have right now.
Okay. Ben? No? Laura?
Yeah, well, so another question along those same lines. Do we know if that weave pattern is connected to the Coast Miwok or the Pomo, or what tribe it comes from?
That was the intent when the wall was being designed, was that it was a local coastal Miwok Pomo tribe pattern.
And then my other question was the hand-drawn art. I really like the artwork on that. And then the last one that's more of the scratch style, it's superficially similar, and it's got the laguna and the agriculture and the trees and the bandstand, but somehow I don't like it as much. So my question is it intended that when we go to the scratch art, it's going to stay a little closer to the previous like the hand-drawn drawings that are in the packet?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I hesitated to even put the scratch art in there because it was really just like taking pieces of art and just dropping it into a picture. So that it doesn't flow together well. It's like a stream that goes across the tops of hills, which water doesn't flow uphill, So it has those kind of like issues when you look at it. I was just really trying to convey that it's a crisper kind of look when it's in its final form. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, quick question. I couldn't tell. Is the intention? I'm a big fan of 2 also. I think that's the. But my question is the kind of flowy thing down the middle, is that meant to be a creek or is that meant to be a path?
It's meant to be a creek. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's it? Okay. Then we will open this up for public comment, and seeing that we don't have one in the audience here, please raise your hand online. I see we have hands popping up, so Kevin, I'll let you manage that.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey. Yes, please, Zoom attendees, use the raise hand icon if you'd like to make a public comment. We'll start with Jenny Blaker. Please go ahead.
Hello, thanks so much for the opportunity to comment. I haven't been following this until now, so I was really interested that it had got so far, and I very much appreciated the discussion and the focus on including nature and music and the Coast Miwok influence. I go along with the staff, and I think it was Laura, I forget. So anyway, option 2 with the double triangles seems to me, I think, to be, I like it the best, and I also think it's probably the closest to the Coast Miwok design, but like as Commissioner Lemus said, Councilmember Lemus said, it would be good to check in with the tribe and at least see if they have any objection. But I'd go for option 2. On the internal art, I like the scratch drawings of the oak trees more than the kind of very general cartoony looking trees in the others, which you can't really tell are oak trees. But I also wondered if maybe there could be some trees along the edge of the creek, because given that one of the features in Cotati is the Laguna Trail with the shading from the trees, and the creek on these is very like open, just going through what looks like bare soil or grass. It would be really nice if there was some trees beside the creek as well. I think that's all my comments. I really like the direction this is going and all the elements that are being included. So thank you for all the work on this.
Thank you for that.
Marie McNaughton, please go ahead.
Good evening. I want to applaud Cotati's move away from the generic California Indian image. I've spent nearly 20 years studying and writing about Cotati history, and really applaud anything that steers away from Chief Cotati, who was not a historical person, but probably a cartoon kind of image created in the mid-20th century by non-Indigenous people. So that makes me very happy. I also like that the seal will be a hexagon, because reflecting the city's very unusual city center. It may be unique in the Americas. It's certainly rare even on a global scale to have a hexagon in the middle of a city. The central drawing on the packet, page 160, which people seem to be steering away from, I do like because it includes oak trees, laguna waters and plants, as well as modern agricultural rows on the bottom of the art, and the hexagonal bandstand reference, which is a comprehensive view of our community. The repeated triangle border option on page 156 of the packet, I think best reflects the Coast Miwok aesthetic as seen in traditional objects. And I would love to see the city/artist actually look at basketry made by Coast Miwoks, which is available to be studied, and see the actual angles of the triangles in those that are not quite as mathy, geometric-y as the one that's being used here. But overall, I'm very excited about these changes. One last thing I wondered about was why the hexagon corners are being rounded. That's not exactly something that our streets do, and I think it softens what's a very strong kind of look that speaks to mandalas and other kinds of mythic elements. So thank you for the opportunity to weigh in, and thank you for making this move towards a more modern 21st century view of Cotati. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mayor Harvey, that'll end public comment.
All right, thank you. I don't see anyone else. Okay, I just wanted to be sure and no more hands went up. So bring it back to the group. Thoughts? Yes, Laura, go for it.
Well, I don't want anyone to think that we in Cotati are weak because of our rounded corners. So I don't know if it's an option that maybe when this comes back the last time, maybe we could see one with the tight corners and one with rounded corners just to compare them. I don't know if that's reasonable, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the interior art, they probably can do art that would just fit in either shape,
Yeah.
and then we can just throw a border different if the council wants. You can see it both ways.
I don't think it would hurt anything. I agree. I like the design that everyone's been referring to on packet page 156. And my last comment is I would like to see a rooster weather vane Easter egg added to the top of the bandstand.
Did I hear you say you want an Easter egg?
Well, Easter egg in the sense of a little secret that you can only
okay.
see if you
All
look
right.
closely.
Okay. Got it.
I do not want a literal Easter egg.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Okay.
I agree with Marie. I think it would be better to have sharper corners on, but I also, on packet page 156, option 2 still is my favorite. And I did notice that the rooster, the weather vane was not there as well. And, however, I do recognize that, I'm looking at our name tag and the seal is like smaller than a fingernail. So, I do understand that those kind of tiny elements are not going to be visible, but I still think I like the idea of it being there nonetheless. But yeah, definitely option 2 is, I like the sort of flowy, nature of the water, and, the structure is very recognizable as our grandstand. And I think and I really love the native element on the outside, and I agree with Marie about the sharper edges. But otherwise, I really like that one a lot. Thank you.
I can't wait for Laura to find her Easter egg on her name tag. Sylvia?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if I fully agree with the sharp edges. I would like to look at it because as Marie was talking, I was drawing it on here, and it looks like a stop sign. So I even wrote stop in the middle. So I think it depends, but I would welcome looking at a version of it. But I definitely do like the Native American border on it. I think that would be important to include to kind of pay homage to the original people of the land. And I do also like I said, the Laguna. And I agree with Vice Mayor about how the last one was almost like a children's book, like illustration, like a children's book, versus the other one. It spoke to me better, I think, the other type of, the initial artist rendering of it.
Thank you. Ben?
Great. I also like the general direction. I was in the earlier discussion, so I knew that the thing down the middle was supposed to be the Laguna, but it looks more like a path with weeds growing along the edge. So the scratch art version at the back, the reeds along the water look better than the reeds in the hand-drawn version. So anyway, make the Laguna look more like the Laguna. To your specific question about feedback on the internal art, I agree with Jenny Blaker that trees ought to be closer to the creek, not far away, and that more mimics how they actually grow. And given the size it will be eventually printed at, I would opt for fewer trees and more central overhanging, so overhanging the Laguna. Although maybe the Laguna has to bend a little different so you can still see the bandstand. I also like border option 2 with, if possible, as Marie suggested, get the artist some pictures of actual baskets and see how close we can get them. There are no, I've looked at satellite pictures of our hub, and there are no sharp corners on the hexagon. So if we do bring back a sharp corner version, also include a satellite picture of the hub, please, because this looks a lot more like what it actually looks like than a sharp corner hexagon. I think I prefer the rounded version myself, but it's not a big deal. I really like the banner with the city of Cotati rather than wrapping it around the outside. I think that was a brilliant way to handle the difficulty of wrapping a hexagon. So I really like the overall direction. I think the interior art is a little too busy for what we're hoping for. So I don't want to add more trees. I just want fewer and closer to the creek. That's yeah, thanks.
Okay. Well, do you have what you need?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I thank you very much. That's very helpful.
I do see one more hand up, so I'm willing to open this. I know, but maybe she had something to add, so I would hate to. So if you could please let Marie.
Marie, you have the floor if you'd like to continue your public comment.
I apologize. I did not mean to add it, and I love all of your comments, and I'm glad we don't necessarily agree on everything, but we're headed in the right direction together.
Thank you.
Can I make one other request?
Sure.
Is that when a final version comes back, that it also come back in the size we'll actually see it?
Yeah.
I was trying to put mine up as far away as I could.
Put it over there.
Didn't really do the trick.
And will it be in color, or will it be in black and white?
It could be either way. It'll be designed to be colorized or black and white.
Okay.
That'd be the intent, so it could be shown
Okay.
either way.
Just curious. All right, so staff has what they need on this. You don't need anything other than this direction. Are you directed enough?
Yeah, no, I'm good. So I will, I'll direct them to make those changes, and then we'll come back and hopefully have the final.
Yes, Kay. Uh-oh, she's going to change her mind now.
No, I'm not. Just building on what you just said, when, one tiny, like it's going to look, and one far away so we can see it, but also, would it be possible to see color and black and white? Because this is all going to be color, right? Or is that later?
Yeah, it probably will be easy to do, I would think. I mean,
Okay.
once they do the artwork, yeah, I think that'd be easy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We ready to move on now? All righty then. So we will now move on to item C, recommend appointment to the Board of Trustees for the Marin, Sonoma, Mosquito, and Vector Control District.
Yes.
Damien, are you taking this?
I am, yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, so we've finally gotten to the item that we've all been waiting for. And all right, so there's a Marin, Sonoma, Mosquito, and Vector Control District, actually based right here in Cotati, right on Hellman Lane behind Lowe's. If you've never been there, it's actually, they do tours, and it's pretty interesting. If you want a bag of mosquito fish or just want to learn about pest control, it's actually a very informative tour. Anyway, so we have as a member of the district, we have a seat on the Board of Trustees. We have it's been a couple of years now, we've been trying to get someone to fill that vacancy. And in discussions with the mayor, she volunteered to step up and take one for the team and put her name in for the Board of Trustees spot. So this board does meet monthly, and it meets right here in Cotati, right off Hellman Lane, and it's the second Wednesday of each month. And the details are in the packet. I won't go through them unless somebody has a question about it. But the only real option is a 2 or 4 year appointment. And speaking with the mayor, she was willing to do a 4-year appointment, so that's what's in the packet. And with that, I'd just be happy to answer any questions, if there are any.
Yes, Ben.
Well, I'm curious about this recommending. I thought we were the appointing body. Why are we recommending and not just appointing?
We are appointing.
Okay, so we would just be moving to appoint
Yes.
Mayor Harvey. Okay.
That's right. Yep.
An extra word.
Yeah.
Okay, Laura, any questions? No? I will open this up for public comment. There's no one here in the audience, so let you take it away, Kevin.
Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon. Mayor Harvey, that'll end public comment.
Thank you for that. So I will bring it back to see what the pleasure of the council is.
We're going to have a knockdown, drag-out fight. Right?
Oh, are you? Okay. All righty then. This is not quite as exciting as some of the other earlier things, huh?
I'd be happy to make a motion if.
Okay.
I move that we appoint Mayor Harvey to the Board of Trustees for the Marin, Sonoma, Mosquito, and Vector Control District for a term of 4 years.
I second with gratitude to the mayor.
It's just been vacant for and we've tried and tried and tried, and, we need to have a full board. So with that, all in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye. Does it not need to be seconded?
It was.
It was. Aye.
Any noes? Not seeing any noes. Any abstentions? Everyone said aye, so we passed this unanimously. Oh, boy. So thank you for that. So I'll let you know how that goes. More to report.
Yeah, congratulations.
Oh, gee, thank you. So with that, we will move on to the city manager's report.
So I have some pretty exciting news to share. One of our officers, one of our police officers, was just recognized as the Sonoma County Law Enforcement Officer of the Year.
Oh,
So that's huge. Of all the 9 municipal agencies, plus the 2 college agencies, plus the sheriff. So they select among all of them who they want to appoint. And Officer Renke was recognized. And this was for specifically for the missing persons case, for the woman that was trapped in Humboldt County and was rescued just in the nick of time before she froze to death, or she didn't freeze to death, but they got to her just in time. So that was anyway, just a great job, and it was recognized by all the law enforcement agencies in Sonoma County. And it's a huge deal, so I don't know that we've ever had an officer that's been recognized as Officer of the Year, so yeah, neither do I, so anyway, big news. And then just quick updates on a couple projects. The West Sierra Sewer Main project, it's pretty close to wrapping up. They're just doing some remaining point repairs on some of the older sewer line segments around the main project area. Otherwise, it's complete. The Pocket Park McGinnis Pathway, that's nearly complete too. They're just waiting on a couple items, and that's the fountain and some lighting and things. They're long lead time items, and they're almost here. So hopefully those will be in here shortly, and they'll get installed, and the project will be done. The window project that you can see along West Sierra, so that's being done to repair water damage around the windows and upgrade the windows for energy efficiency and noise reduction. Those windows are all in now. They just need to be weather sealed, some trim work, and stucco, but that one's moving along nicely. The Civic Center window replacement project will start soon. And then Katati Park refurbishment, that's been going. So if you've gone out there, the central grass area, of course, is still untouched, but all the playground and landscape areas around the perimeter have all been, for the most part, graded or starting to be prepped. So there's a lot of work going on out there at the park. And then, as the council knows, you recently awarded some pretty large road construction project contracts, and those will get going in the next month or month and a half. One being the West Sierra reconstruction. There's many names for it, but I'll just keep it simple. It's West Sierra and La Plaza. Those 2 ring roads are getting done. We're also, by the way, we're also working with Comcast to get internet into the park, into La Plaza Park, so that there'll be public Wi-Fi there. And so we've been working with them to get it ahead of the paving, so they don't destroy the paving to put the Wi-Fi in. So hopefully by the summer, the road, the plan is by the summer, the road will be repaved, and there'll be Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi in the park. Also, the other big reconstruction project that the council recently awarded was it's the area primarily around Myrtle. So Myrtle will be fully reconstructed, as well as some streets off on the south side of Myrtle. And that will finish the road reconstruction work on that quadrant of town. So that'll be huge, a huge accomplishment. The housing element, as the council knows, that was submitted to the state in November. And that 90-day review period is going to be ending here. It should be this week. We should be getting comments back from HCD, and so look for that in the very near future. We'll bringing it forward for Planning Commission and Council approval. And we don't have hard dates yet when that's going to happen. We need to see what all the comments are going to be. We did post the revised housing element on the website, and that incorporates some of the informal comments that we've already gotten from the state verbally. But we'll know for sure when we get the letter this week. So lastly, today, I think everyone knows, is Valentine's Day. There's Hershey's Kisses all around this place, thanks to one of our council members. But early today, we did deliver 60 Valentine grams throughout Katati. So there's a lot of, that car was packed full of Valentine's Day grams. And It was, it's flowers, cookies, goodies, personalized card, and it was a sellout success, as it has been in the last couple of years. And we got a, we actually got a voicemail from some of the residents that loved it, so already today, which is kind of rare. You don't usually get voicemails from people. They love their Valentine's Day grams, so that was good. And then we're also doing bunnygrams again this year, where you can send baskets, like Easter baskets, to people in Cotati. So that's stuffed eggs, candy treats, and more. So if anyone's interested in that, sign up early because those also sell out. We also have Bunny Brunch and the Egg Hunt coming up on April 1st. That's Saturday. Registration is already open and it's filling up. We have 2 sessions in the morning, 9 and 9:45. And it's scrambled eggs, pancakes, sausage, fruit, drinks, that sort of thing for breakfast with the Easter Bunny. The Easter Bunny will be there. So that's part of the deal. And an egg hunt that's outside. And you can take photos with the bunny if you'd like. This also sells out, so reserve your space if you're interested in that. And then just on the heels of that, we have Spring Break Camp coming up. We're doing 2 camps, Camp Cotati Spring Break Camp and the Spring Break Spanish Camp offered this year. And then we have a bunch of other camps coming up at the Veranda Flitti Ranch, a community camp out at the ranch. But you do have to sign up for that. You can't just show up and camp out there. And the community yard sale will also be coming up. That's basically like a giant garage sale here at City Hall, and the proceeds benefit our recreation programming. And if anyone has any questions or wants more information on the recreation events, they can always contact our rec department at 665-4222 or wilson@cotati.org, or register on the city website on the rec desk page that we have on our website. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Seeing none. Thank you. My grandkids love the Valentine Grams. They called me. They were very excited. So Ashley and her team did a great job. So appreciate that. Yeah?
So I just wanted to comment on Ryan, Officer Renke. Just last week, a drunk driver smashed into 3 cars in front of our house, losing the wheel off of his truck. It was pretty crazy. And then proceeded to drive another half mile down our brand new beautiful road without a tire. So that was pretty impressive. And he came and he was amazing. And, I just followed the grind on the road to find where it ended. But he was just super amazing. And I'm wondering, I don't know, do we have any kind of city council mayor commendation or anything that we could award him? Is that something that our city does or could do?
So we don't have anything specific like that, but I think as we get more details on how the Officer of the Year award thing will happen, we could potentially have him. I'm kind of speaking out of turn. I haven't talked to the chief about it, but we could potentially have him here and just recognize him that way at one of our council meetings.
And remember, Officer Renke was the Cotati Employee of the Year, and much of it was behind what happened with the investigation, because the department heads ultimately chose Ryan. So he has been recognized by the city, but if council wants to recognize officers, I'm not going to stand in your way.
I think this is really above and beyond, and I think it's wonderful that we have an officer in our city. So I think that we should do whatever it is that you and Damien decide appropriate. I think the council would support that, because what he did was way above and beyond. I mean, he was going to do everything within his physical and mental power to ensure that that young lady got back to her family, which was really amazing. So,
yeah.
Right.
I would, sorry, I don't mean to drag this out, but
okay.
I will have to say that same night, we had 2 accidents. We had one person hit the pole here on the corner, right in front of the Church of the Oaks, which you knew about, because the wires were hanging a little low for a bit till I'm still working on that. And the other was the one that was in your neighborhood that was, ping-ponging off cars. Yeah, down the street, which was awful too. But with the grinding of the asphalt, I mean, just because I know the level of investment that goes into repaving those roads and how hard it is to get that money together to make those kind of investments, it killed me. So, I mean, of course, people's car damage hurts too, but look at the road. I tend to do that. I look at the road and I'm like, oh, really? Like so soon. I mean, the asphalt's barely cold, and someone has to grind a nice gouge through it. But anyway, sorry. That was it.
Yeah, the one other thing I just want to say about that is it was just miraculous that nobody got hurt. Like no animals, no people, a lot of property damage, but no people. And that was, because some guy was following him from Adrian and Runner Park. He was like driving that whole way like that. So it's really, I feel very fortunate that no one got hurt.
Okay, with that, then we will move on to city council member reports.
Sure. I went to a few meetings this month as an alternate and some primary. February 2nd, I went to the Sonoma Clean Power Authority meeting. It was an online meeting. I didn't stay for the full meeting, but they talked about how community engagement will be increased in targeted areas. Also on the 2nd, I did go to Housing 101, which is a program that was put on by Generation Housing. That was really good. It was almost a full-day program with a lot of the housing laws and initiatives, and they had different nonprofits and attorneys on housing speaking about the new rules coming into play. So that was really good on the 2nd. I went on February 6th to the WAC-TAC meeting, the Water Advisory Committee, and on the 9th, as an alternate to the Mayors and Council Members Association. The 10th to the Groundwater Sustainability Association meeting, and then I just went before this meeting to the Cotati Chamber of Commerce meeting as a representative. So meetings are starting, so glad to be of help.
Ben?
Well, I'll just mention that Sonoma Clean Power is really a leader in the state in trying to, what the current challenge with the our electrical supply situation is. Solar is great for 6 hours a day, and what do you do the rest of the time? So Sonoma Clean Power with our geothermal resources, that's why we have good 24/7 renewable power in our region, but ramping that up is a big challenge, and especially what we approved in the consent calendar tonight is a proposal for a grant to build a project that would be a first of its kind to have a way to use the geothermal heat during the day, but store that heat rather than immediately turning it into electricity, and turn it into electricity when the need on the grid is highest. So if that technology gains a foothold, it could be huge in smoothing out the power demand curve and reducing the need for natural gas plants. So Sonoma Clean Power continues to do pretty impressive work.
Great. Kay, do you have any report?
No, mine are coming up.
Okay. Laura?
I attended the Water Advisory Committee meeting. It was a pretty short meeting. They were done in about an hour, and
wow.
That was a record. So good news, I think we're all aware, but the lakes are full. Lake Sonoma is almost entirely full as of the last meeting, so that's fantastic news. And I don't think too much to report. Is there anything important you wanted to mention? Yeah, a big binder.
Oh, yeah.
I think there was a discussion about a tour in combination with Runner Park City Council and Cotati City Council. I'm not sure if it's scheduled for me.
I think that City Manager Obed is working on it, and I think what you told me was that we don't have Runner Park on for it yet, but I was going to reach out and see if they wanted to perhaps join us.
Yeah, I think it's going to go the other way around. We're going to be scheduled first, and they can join if they can. Yeah.
Great. SK?
Yeah, I just thought I'd go ahead and just mention that in case anyone wants to join me, the library committee is going to be meeting on the 21st I believe at 5 p.m. at the not Rancho Cotati, the Runner Park.
Cotati Library.
I don't even think it's called Katati anymore. The Roanoke
Well,
Park Library
used
in
to
Roanoke
be.
Park.
All right. So I attended the SCTA RCPA meeting, and after 3 hours, my head was about ready to explode. Got a lot to learn there. They were giving a report on their annual stuff and grants that they've been applying for and things like that, but nothing very specific for us. But boy, they do an awful lot of stuff. So that was pretty incredible. I attended the mayors and council members meeting, and thank you, Sylvia, for jumping in there. I had the worst internet that night. I got popped out of Zoom 3 times and kept having to get back in. So Sylvia jumped in on one vote for me when I couldn't vote. So, and again, appreciate the staff on the Valentine Grams. My grandkids loved them and called and were very excited. So that's all I have to report. Oh, and Damien is going to, since I am not available on Thursday, Damien is going to go to the Waste Management Agency meeting for me. It'll be fun, Damien. It'll be fun. So, yeah, it's been a while. So, now we will move on to public comments on non-action agenda items. So, we'll start with the Zoom attendees first.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey. If you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon. Neil Hancock, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. It's a new headset. I'm trying. So I'd like to say thank you for the Wi-Fi, for the city putting in the Wi-Fi. It's some 5 years since I went to a meeting where there was a technology type meeting trying to figure out how do you reach the rest of the people who haven't got easy access to data. And this is something that will really help with anybody who's, let's say, just hasn't got a regular data plan. It's also some 20 years since I was going around talking to people saying, have you got Wi-Fi? And they looked at me and said, are you a hacker? We don't allow those around here. That was both within Britain and here. So I think that's a really excellent that there's an access for that locally in the park. There used to be the dental that did it. I'd also like to commend the city for talking or supporting the Sonoma Clean Power and the superheating, figuring out a way of storing that energy by superheating the steam beforehand. That really was interesting to read about, and I did some more research. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
Mayor Harvey, that'll end Zoom public comment.
Okay. And then members of the audience, if you would like to make a comment on non-action agenda items, you may please step forward to the podium. Okay. It's quite all right. Just wanted to give you that option. So with that, I will bring it back, and we will move on to information received after the agenda was posted. Do we have anything of note other than what was given to us?
There's a letter that was given to you and posted online. That's the only information received.
Okay. With that, if no one has anything else, I will adjourn this meeting at, let's see, 8:31. And happy Valentine's Day, and let you all get back to your families. So thank you.
Recording.